I definitely had some kind of imposter syndrome at that point.
That's when I'm gonna expose myself.
I got a DUI.
And then it got to a point where like we were so busy that you couldn't even leave. You then pretty much more or less moved into the kitchen with me at that point.
It's more efficient if we sleep. Well, you tried to make a couple of moves on me, but I
Oh my
knew
god. She
no.
keeps saying I made
It's
the
true.
move. You made the moves on me.
That was after, and we were really good friends.
We were the best friends.
And you were texting me while
Yeah.
you were on dates with girls, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Why are you texting me?" You're like, "She's in the bathroom." Blah 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 blah. This and this and this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Stop."
We would have failed.
I think we would have flopped.
Yeah,
I think we would have dropped the ball.
It caught up to me. I was done. I was checked out mentally. I remember getting some really, really, really dark thoughts at this point, and it was just as bad as suicidal thoughts. Like, if you want to be a man, you always have to be the bigger man, right? Like, you can't just pick and choose, right?
I wouldn't recommend starting a business together.
Excuse me, but don't fuck with me, right? Like, I don't care who you are.
We go to sleep at night knowing that our food is the best.
All right, guys, welcome to the first episode of On the Run podcast. No one else that I would love to have on my first episode than my partner in crime, my best friend, and pretty much my everything. I'd like to introduce Sasha, the wonderful, the most beautiful partner of my life.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for helping me get this done. I'd like to start off by asking you, where did we meet and how did we meet?
Well, funny enough, we crossed paths so many times before we actually had a formal introduction meeting. But I met your brother through some mutual friends, and we just got to talking and realized that you started a food business knowing nothing about it. And I was a chef that was kind of lost on her path. And he asked me if I could just come in and maybe give you some advice.
Sure.
And that's how we originally met. But at that point in my life, I was trying to make a big change. It was ironically like right before I was trying to leave Canada. And then we ended up meeting when I came back from my trip, and that changed everything. It literally changed the whole trajectory of where my life was gonna go, because I had this one plan, and then I met you, which was supposed to be, I think, like a 10-15 minute meeting that ended up being like 3 hours. Yeah. And when we actually sat down and got to talking, it felt like we knew each other this whole time.
Yeah. And where was that?
Here. It was here. It was at now we have multiple units on a separate office, but at the time it was just the kitchen, and there was a little makeshift barn looking office right at the kitchen. Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah, I'll never forget that day. You're right. 15-minute conversation turned into a 3-hour, amazing first ever, it's like, conversation or meeting that we've ever had. And getting to know you, I felt like that was like the missing piece. It was like I was like, okay, cool, I made it. If I get this chef on board, that's it. The company's successful. It's done. Like, I've built the company, right? I have the kitchen, I have the chef, and I have myself. I'm like, that's it. What I want to ask you was, how did you start working like for OTR? Like, what was your role? Like, what was your experience? What do you remember about it?
I remember, well, to be honest with you, both of us were kind of lost in doing everything. I just knew the food part of it. Nothing about business, nothing about running a business, nothing about people, managing people, nothing about like the structure of running like a serious kitchen and what an executive chef's position really entails.
Yeah.
Because everybody really thinks that an executive chef is just like, oh, you're cooking, you're so passionate, you're creating menu items, you're doing this, you're developing, blah blah blah. But in reality, that job is just being like a general.
Yeah.
Like it's more about organization and managing and
But prior to all the organization and all the um, employees that have come and gone and that you've trained and all that, like when we had first started, how were you involved with OTR? I just want to see if we have the same memory of it.
I remember.
Like, how did you, like, what were you doing? How were you doing it? Like,
Okay, so I remember first asking you to just train me how you do things, the way you do them, as if I were just a random person off the street, like a regular employee with no knowledge about food whatsoever. And we did that. I think for the first week, I was just following your lead for the most part. And then I took all that and kind of sat on it, thought about it, try to figure out ways to like make it better, make it more efficient. And then I came back and started trying to implement some of those things. You were absolutely not resistant to any of my suggestions. And then we kind of, I don't know, I think there was a lot of chemistry, like just the way we were working together. We had this like flow.
yep,
We could really catch momentum,
yep,
and then essentially like somehow it all fell into positions on its own, like naturally. It was very organic, like our work dynamic. Um, and we were never really in each other's way. Like we kind of just like sensed where we should be at
yeah,
what time.
yeah,
I remember we were doing back to back like split shifts because there was only us two.
yeah,
So you were
definitely.
working.
I think we're fast forwarding a little bit. So several details that I remember was originally when you had started, you were working a job that was actually paying you. So let's just bring out some more reality and some
Oh,
more
I didn't know we
context.
were gonna get that
Yeah,
nitty gritty.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So from the beginning, right? So like we had met, we had that interview that took 3 hours. You had come back, and you're like, okay, let's do this, right? And you're right. We went through like a week, maybe even two, of me showing you how meal prep works, like how I do meal
Hmm.
prep, what I'm doing. Of course, there was like 400 mistakes, but never mind that. Um, you then, took that back home, right? You were like, you sat on it, as you mentioned. But one detail that you're forgetting to mention was how you were working. You were pretty much not sleeping, right?
Yeah.
So you would work overnight. All right, guys, let me explain to you. She would work overnight. She was in she was doing some financial forget exactly what, but never mind. She was working with something on finance that she had to be awake during the evening because the markets were open in China. So
Yeah.
so she would be watching the markets, doing her thing, whatever task that she was facilitating, and then you would come after that shift at like you would finish, I think, about 9 a.m.,
10.
10
Yeah,
a.m. Yep,
it was 10 to 10. My shift was
10 to
10
10.
p.m. to 10 a.m.
Exactly. You would then what? Come straight to
Here.
OTR.
Yeah.
Mind you, I was pretty much living here at that time because it was just me in the kitchen. So you would just pop in. You would, we would do a bunch of the work. Again, never mind the details of what, where, when, and how got done. But, we would finish X amount of tasks that day. And then you would leave to, I don't know, do whatever, live your life pretty much, because you had a life outside of work as well. And then I don't know when you slept, but you would repeat that 6 days out of the week, or excuse me, 5 days out of the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Monday to Friday, I remember. And let's just be real. How was I paying you? It was sometimes, you got paid,
Sometimes you were paying, sometimes you weren't paying me.
and
Yeah.
sometimes it was more and sometimes it was less. It was
It
whatever
was what
was
it
there.
was. But I mean, I knew what I signed up for at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. You understood that it was a startup, I
Yes,
think,
absolutely.
intuitively.
I knew it was a startup. I knew we were building. Well, it's not like I knew. I felt and I had faith and belief that what we're building is gonna, it's gonna be something big. I also knew that um, nowhere I would go to work as an employee will give me the opportunity to just do what I want as
Yeah.
as a creative, I guess.
And that
And
was your major thing that we
yes,
spoke about, right? It was like,
absolutely.
if you want me here, then I'm going to have to take lead on the creative. And luckily for me, with little to none creative skills, that was a perfect fit. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll let you have that.
You know,
Meanwhile, I was begging you to take that.
now that I think about it, ironically, we fell into the opposite positions over time.
Yeah,
I became the doer and you
yeah.
became the idea man.
I
Where
know.
you hired me to be the idea girl while you thought you're gonna be the doer.
I know. I know. I know. You're right. The position and dynamics have changed over time. But fast forward to what you were mentioning earlier, then we started getting some orders, started getting more busy. I started stressing about you having another job.
Yes.
Remember that conversation? I was like, you're either all in or you're not. That was remember? And you're
Yes.
like, well, you barely pay me. And I'm like, well, that's not the point.
Well,
I know. I was very selfish at that point. Looking back, obviously we've had these conversations over and over. I was all in with anything I do. I'm all in. And, I was doing what I can with the resources that I had and the knowledge that I had at the time. Right. But the mentality has never changed. It's the all in mentality, right? Even till this day, I'm still all in, right? Like I believe in what we do. But yeah, what I wanted to do is kind of transition, or let's just give a little context. So we started getting some orders, started getting a little bit busy, right? We went from like our 30, 40 people up to like 60, 70. We pretty much doubled the business with no advertisement, no nothing.
yeah.
Nothing. It was just all word of mouth, right? There was nothing. We were nowhere. No one knew who we were. We gained some good contracts, what we felt was a success then because, it was amazing for the company and the brand.
Yeah.
Working with Tennis Canada,
Blue Jays.
Toronto Blue
It's definitely
Jays.
good exposure. Yeah.
Definitely great
Absolutely.
exposure. Helped us, create some validity and like and how do I say it? Like, you know, people started taking us
Like
seriously.
social validation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
social validation,
I
right?
remember feeling very proud, I guess,
Definitely.
that the Blue Jays picked us.
Yeah. I was really, really, like
I was like flattered. Yeah. I was very
beyond.
flattered. And I remember at the time.
Shout out Jose Batista for giving us, the introduction. Shout out Nigel, the chef. He's done a great job with us, working together over that period of time. It was really a point of our business success where we felt, we made it. Like
I definitely had some kind of imposter syndrome at that point because I
100%.
could not believe,
Yeah.
for some reason, that these big teams, these huge organizations are actually like repeatedly buying food from us.
Yeah.
Like I actually like I was like, how is this possible? Like I'm nobody. Like
I know. And because again, to circle back to the next transition of our relationship and our work relationship, what you mentioned was this split shift, right? And how did those look, so I'm just gonna expose myself a little bit. Where I started the company, I lived on my own, right? I had my own condo that I lived out of, and that's where the company was founded. I later transitioned from that to a sublease, which then, brought me here. You came about, and you and I know, obviously, you've seen it firsthand. in the early stages, my relationship with my mother and me having to move back home, and the amount of stress that caused for me. Um,
I didn't know much about any of the situation. There was just a couple instances I've seen. I've
yeah,
obviously um seen. I felt the energy.
100%.
Like I
So,
felt your energy when you would come back here and we would be working, that
100%,
something was off. I wasn't the one to like pry unless
100%.
you come to me and want to share. I wasn't like really like trying to like dissect it or question you about it, but I
Again,
think
it was the all-in mentality, right? My mom's always been worried about me. Oh, you should relax. You should, take some rest. You don't look good. I was like I wasn't eating. I was barely eating. I wasn't sleeping. So obviously my mom was worried, but I didn't have time for this mom-son talk because, if I don't show up to work or if I didn't do the work, like what was all this for the last year and a half or 2 years, excuse me, at this point. And that's when I'm going to expose myself, moved in to the office essentially, right?
yes, I remember.
And lived out of the office for like, fuck, get a little emotional, but yeah, 3 months before moving to
Mary.
Mary. I love you, Mary. Um, yeah. And then what happened?
Well, I was living in Newmarket at the time because I also underwent some I guess personal life turmoil
Yeah.
at that point, and I figured honestly it was kind of like a safety thing for me, like being close to my mom, like like I'm a girl, I run to my mom, when I
Yep.
have a problem. So I ran back to mommy, and I was living with my mom and my sister in Newmarket. And then at a certain point,
You were going back and forth.
yeah, I was going back and
Who's
forth.
driving you back and forth?
Well, at the beginning I was driving by myself, but then a mishap happened.
What was that mishap and when was it?
It was on your birthday.
It was on my birthday. I got
It
the
was,
best birthday present that year.
yes.
And what was it?
I got a DUI.
Hey guys, life's too short to be wasting countless hours on cooking, or even worse, to be cutting corners on what you eat. Here at OTR Meals, we cook chef-inspired meals with clean, hand-picked ingredients, gluten-free and dairy-free options, and never frozen meals. You get to focus on what really matters in life while we take care of the food. Want to try it out? Go to otrmeals.com and use promo code podcast20 for your 20% off your first order. And if you're serious about your fitness goals, check out our protein-only options and use promo code MEAT20 and get yourself 20% off your first high-quality protein order. Hurry up and head to otrmeals.com and let us fuel your life the right way.
The first and only time you've ever been pulled over?
That was the first and only time till this day that I've ever been pulled over,
Pulled
or
over.
got a ticket.
Or ever drank and drove? Ever?
It was really crazy.
What a lesson, right?
Yeah, it was actually really, really crazy because I when I was younger, I was surrounded by people that drink and drove like regularly, like it's nothing, and I was always so scared of doing that, and I've never done it. And the one time that I did, because at that point I felt like I had no choice, I had to leave, I had to go home. I did drive, and that was, again, like you mentioned, the first time I ever got pulled over by a cop, the first time I ever probably spoke to a cop. The first time I got, and the only time till this day that I've ever gotten a ticket, and that was a DUI. Yeah, and I got my driver license taken away, and then it was a whole process of trying to get it back. But in the meantime, while I was working on getting my driver license back, I still had to work and travel from
Do you
Newmarket to
remember how
Scarborough.
pissed I was on Sunday when you didn't show up?
I am trying to not remember that.
Do you remember that day? I felt like the world was falling. Every single day, when I tell you guys this, like every single day, you remember this, felt like the end of the world. Like, if we didn't finish X amount of tasks, the meals wouldn't get out on time. If they didn't get out on time for the money that I have already collected, like, I'm done. Like, that's it. The business is done. Like, everything's done. And that day, I remember showing up, and I was like, how did she let me down? She showed up after not sleeping for like 21 days straight, having to work 2 jobs. She's been here every single time. I was like, what the hell is going on? And I was just losing it. And
You also couldn't get a hold of me because
I
they
couldn't
took
get a
my
hold.
phone. My phone died or something.
That's what it
They also
was.
took it away.
Yeah. And I had no reason. You didn't respond, nothing, till the following day when you did just show up and you explained to me. And I was like, wow, I'm a selfish piece of shit. But
How would
anyways,
you have known?
didn't know. But that's what I mean by all in. I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about you. I didn't care about nothing. I was like, OTR.
Get
Like,
the meals out.
get
Yeah.
the meals out. That's all that mattered at that moment. And, didn't care what it took. And,
Well,
you know,
funny enough, it's still the same. The same till this day.
In
Every
a way,
single time
in a
something
way.
goes wrong, we run here right away.
No, in a way, right? We have systems now. We have amazing team. We have other people that care a lot. Every single team member here now knows how to solve every single problem. It's a different
Oh,
story.
absolutely. I meant more
I'm
as
saying
in,
the
like, if
mentality.
something goes wrong in the middle of the night, like
Yeah, like it's just like, but it's just because we take a lot of ownership, right? It's not like we have to. It's because we want to, and we always want to fix the problem as soon as possible, and we always want to stay on top of it because that's just who we are. But at that time, it's not about who we were. It was about what we had to get done in that, literally in that moment. And yeah, so as I was sleeping in the office and having to drive you back and forth to Newmarket at the time.
well, I was taking the bus to get here in the morning. I
Yes.
remember.
Yes, and then I ended up driving you first to Finch Station,
Yeah.
at Yonge and Finch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the hell am I just driving you here? I'm like, might as well just drive you home. If you're going to have to wait for a bus, So I started driving you home. At that point, I was like, man, like, now I'm getting no sleep. Because I would have to come back.
Yeah, that drive was definitely taxing.
Definitely taxing. I'd wake up. I'd go to Kennedy LA Fitness. They'd recently opened up. I'd take my shower in the morning. I wasn't even working out. I'd just take my showers. Still had the LA Fitness Pass. Come back to the office, get to work. You'd come in the morning because I wouldn't pick you up in the morning. You'd just show up in the morning. We'd work. And then it got to a point where, like, we were so busy that you couldn't even leave. So
it just kind of started.
I don't know how that happened, but
yeah. We got really busy, and the amount of it just seemed pointless.
Yes. And what happened then?
To go home, like to the drive home, which is an hour, or the bus, which was like a 2-hour route, to just, kind of come home, shower, sleep for 2 hours, and then mission back here.
Yeah.
It just became kind of like redundant. Like, I don't know, like
just
what's
a waste
the
of
word
time,
for it? Yeah, it just
and energy too. For both of us, it was very taxing on both
and
of us.
I realized at one point that even when I was home, like I wasn't really like relaxed because all the stuff that wasn't done was always on my mind. That in my head I was like, I should have just took a nap there
and get it done.
Yeah, so I can just get up and kind of dive right in.
So what happens? You then pretty much more or less move into the kitchen with me at that point, right?
Yeah.
You started like,
Well,
we made a makeshift bed?
There was that couch thing.
We had a couch, right?
Yeah.
And we would sleep how? Like, remember?
Like this. Yeah, like you were on this side and I was on the other
side.
Yeah.
Like,
so what happened was originally we were always working together
yes.
and just pulling through like 16 hours, 17, 18-hour days. And then we realized that it's more efficient if we sleep. Our brains just work better when we sleep.
Yeah.
So we started splitting the shift. So you would do 8 hours and then you had your 8 hours to do whatever you want, sleep, rest, eat, whatever. While I work 8 hours. And then, so we just did that in a loop essentially for a while. I think it was like maybe a month and a half, 2 months.
And we'd be working like that 8-hour split. It wasn't just like 8 a.m. till, 4 p.m. It was like anytime, 24/7. It was just,
it was just in a loop. It was just the 8-hour mark.
Yeah.
And then we would kind
like
of
we'd work at like 2 a.m.
absolutely, yeah.
Like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
6 a.m. 7 p.m. It
all
didn't
hours
matter.
of the
It was
day.
just like
and we would just essentially cross paths in between.
Yep.
And
I'd
kind
wake you
of
up.
recap each other on what's going on,
Where
what's
we
in the
left off.
oven, how many hours for the slow cook, the brisket, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then what happened then?
That's crazy. I have not thought about this time in a long time.
I know. What happened after hanging out for being so close and sleeping a certain way?
Well, you tried to make a couple of moves on me, but I knew
God.
no.
She keeps saying
it's true.
You made the moves on me.
That was after. That was after.
Okay.
That was when you moved. Remember when you rented the condo?
Oh yes.
Yeah, you tried to make a couple moves on me, but I knew that it was just like it's just us.
Yeah.
Like all the time, we don't have any like outside circles, extracurricular activities. So I knew that that's why it was happening.
Out of comfort.
Yeah. It was more like a comfort kind of thing. Like
what happened?
Well, at that time, nothing happened. And then we were extensively talking about how we can't live here. Like I was still obviously going home and stuff. Like I was still with my mom. Like I was still showering at home and stuff. But you were really living here, and I kept trying to like emphasize the fact that you probably shouldn't be living here. And actually, now that I think, that all happened after the advances you made on me, because I was like, okay, if he's making advances on me at this point, that means like he really needs to like go out and like have a separate himself from this kitchen.
100%.
And remember, I started encouraging you to like kind of like get a place or something, like move out. And then I think you had a friend or something that was going away for a couple of months, or I don't know the deal, but like his place was empty, so instead of renting something, you just decided to kind of stay there, at least to separate yourself and get a little break from the business. And then the one time I came over, we got drunk and we hooked up. And then I was the one, just to emphasize, that made the first move that time.
100%. It's always been
because I know that's how you love to remember it.
It's always you. And then fast forward, there came a point where, again, I think we got the timeline a little bit mixed up with in terms of when I had the condo. I had the condo and then I had to give it back, and then I forget how it worked out, but
and that's when you moved to Mary's.
No, and then I moved to the office because I couldn't move back home. But regardless of how that all went, I went to Mary's, and Mary took me in. I love you, Mary. And took me in, I remember, and I lived there, I believe, for like a month and a half, about
something like that. Because I know at the time she had like these international students lined up.
Yes.
And there was a small gap between where she offered that you could stay, but then there was somebody scheduled, so you had like a time frame.
Pretty much, and then I'd moved. No, and then I had to find my next place,
and that's
because you were saying you can't go back to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And that's when Mary, again, thank you, Mary, I love you, introduced us to her friend that owned a home that we ended up
renting the basement.
Renting the basement.
Well, we started talking about while you were still at Mary's, and like you kind of had the date of when you should be moving out of there. We somehow decided that maybe it's a good fit for us to be roommates.
But at that time we already were kind of hooking up at several, we've hooked up several times at that point, but we had something, we had to keep it a secret. And for what reason did we keep it a secret? But I also
think it's not like
no, we did. And there was a reason.
We also I think it's twofold. I know your reasoning behind it, but I think it's twofold. I think at the core, we both weren't sure
100%
what's going on,
100%.
And if this is just a comfort thing, kind of like I said, like is it just because we're just in each other's orbit so much that it's just natural for the time being? At this point,
like we haven't experienced anything outside of work, right? Like we've had a couple lunches, we've gone out to a bar or two after work, had a couple drinks, you know. Yeah, like we've been intimate with one another, but we've never actually experienced anything personally. Like we haven't gone on a real date. We never dated. We just went from living in the kitchen essentially, or working together and being together 24/7 to like just moving in, right? And we justified it by saying, hey, we can afford it, because it was like $500 a month or something, you know, at the time. And we saved all this time, right? You didn't have to go back up north. I was not living in the kitchen, you know. We felt like we kind of made it. We had our own space. We felt good. But what we weren't sure of was being together as one. Like, how does this look? Like, what does it look like? Like, we haven't even gone out anywhere. Like, what do we, you know, what do we do? Like, yeah, we respect one another, and that's what we admired each other. We admired each other, 100%.
And we were really good friends.
We were the best friends.
But
that was
now
the
that
thing.
I remember that time, we spent so much time together physically here. And even when we were separated because I had to go home and you had to do your thing, we continuously talked all the time.
All the time. I remember texting, always messaging.
I remember you were trying to date at one point and you were texting me while you were on dates with girls. And I'm like, why are you texting me? You're like, she's in the bathroom, blah, 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 this and this and this. Yeah. And I'm like, stop. Focus.
I remember.
We were always, we just, I don't know.
It just all happened essentially. But we moved in and we had to keep it a secret. At that time, it was me and Sasha operationally 24/7. There was, you know, a little bit of help here, a little bit of help there from friends, family, of course. Some family friends had come, you know, got paid. I don't know what we were paying them. I felt bad for them. I don't even know what I was paying them, but nevertheless had helped, right? But one person that was actually, or two people that were involved, but one that was kind of involved on operations as well, because he was helping us figure it out. You know, he was there time to time, and you know, with the renovations and helping us figure out finances when I was my brother. Right? He was our angel investor, my angel investor. I love you, Emmy. Thank you for believing in me. And you know, me and my brother love each other to death, right? But we didn't grow up being best friends. You know, we always admired me. Looking back, you know, looking at pictures even as a kid, like I know he loved me and I know that I love him. I've always wanted to be like him. You know, I always dressed like him growing up. But gone through many phases, you know, but always look up to my brother. And truth be told, you know, because I've always wanted to be like him, I never wanted to let him down. And when we started hooking up, because his money was on the line at the time, I felt very insecure about telling him because I knew his outlook, right? I was very emotionally driven back then, you know. I was all in on OTR. I didn't care about my brother. I didn't care about nobody, like literally nobody, including myself. And I knew intuitively that in itself made me look crazy. But I know in order to create something great, you have to have a level of craziness in you, which in retrospect now is the winning recipe, right? But back then, intuitively, I knew that I was scared to tell him.
But also at the time, he was really like kind of the rhyme and reason.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And you knew that if you tell him, his reaction
would be
is
like,
gonna
hey,
be
like
very much true and logical.
Yeah, like,
it's
you were 50%
hey,
of the
it's just
business.
You and her running this. And if now, because of this, something happens and she walks away, what are we going to do?
Exactly. So then...
Because you weren't really thinking logically. You were just doing.
I was emotionally driven.
You were like in this, just like on this wheel, right? You were
100%.
doing, and then, you know...
100%.
Things were just happening.
Things were just happening. Things were being built. Things were being done. But it wasn't... There was no real plan to it. It was just, let's get shit done.
Yeah.
And when he had first, oh my God, the story.
I'll let you tell it.
Okay. I'll say it. So we had moved in. I had asked him to help us move in. Unfortunately, he was really busy at the time, and he had come after I had two friends help us move in. And
I think it was also the way you phrased things to him. You were very like vague.
Very vague.
Sasha and I are gonna rent a place together. I think that's how you
exactly. It wasn't like we're moving in together. We're renting a place together.
Yeah.
As if like there's gonna be like
multiple rooms.
Multiple rooms. So like just to give a little context, we were living out of a basement, and it was just an open basement. Essentially, it wasn't. There wasn't separation.
Like a bachelor.
Yeah, like a bachelor unit, right? And that's what he rented to us. But there was other parts of the basement where he used as storage.
Mm-hmm.
So when my brother comes and he sees it, he's like, he looks left, he looks right. He's like, okay, I see an open concept. I'm gonna ask the question, the elephant in the room, right? The elephant in the room is, so where's Sasha gonna be sleeping? Because he assumed that that's my part, and I said, oh, there's another room. Like back, he's like, oh, let me see. I'm like, no, because it's a mess right now. I have to move a bunch of shit there, and on top of that, we have to get Sasha's bed. I still haven't moved it. Like I just started making lies up, and he was not stupid. He kind of said, you know what? I gotta accept it for what it is. But he kind of like looked at me and said, okay, and he played along. We both knew that I was lying, but he didn't want to call me out because he's just like, how much more stress can this guy undertake? Or undergo, at that time. So I was like, anyways, he leaves. Obviously, maybe about a month or month and a half later, we kind of just tell him, like, hey, listen, buddy, like this is happening. Me and her are kind of a thing. Anyways, what happens?
I have no memory of how that part went.
I don't remember. It's very vaguely. I just remember just kind of exposing myself, just telling.
I remember a lot of people were like, "Yes, we knew it. We put bets that we were together for a while," kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
yeah, a lot of people, definitely wanted to see us together. Again, shout out Mary. I love you, Mary. You were the first one to call it. You know everything before it actually happens. That's why you gotta listen to your elders and your mothers and your aunts, and they're always right. Even my own mother, she's always been right, even when I think she's wrong. But fast forward, we're working, still working every day, all day. But we started enjoying time. We started going down to the bluffs. We started, going out for like food because we could afford like a little bit of food. We started enjoying, and we realized that we do love. We started like love each other. Like we weren't in love at this point, but we love each other. Like we admired each other. We respected each other. Everything was great. And then what happens? The business comes to pretty much almost a halt, to a point where we couldn't afford anything. So
yeah, I remember summers were being tough period for the business because of
everybody just going away, doing summer things. We didn't have a loyal following. We didn't have
community.
Yeah, we didn't have a community. We didn't have hundreds or thousands of members. We had nothing. We had 70 members. So when we
like
lost
70, 80 consistent throughout the year, and then probably like 60% of them would leave for the summer.
And then what happened?
Plus minus. Well, I remember we were highly considering just like sitting down and calculating if it's even worth keeping the facility open
for those times.
Those times. There was one summer that was really rough, and then I think we both made the decision. I just got offered an opportunity that I've turned down multiple times previously. And then this time I think we talked about it, and you were like, yeah, go,
you have to
take it.
So pretty much she went up north. She worked at a camp, got paid ridiculous amount of money at that time. I was like, why are you not doing this all the time? Because obviously at this point,
because I'm building a business with you.
I know, of course. And we knew that this was short-term solution for a long-term vision, which really helped us because we were able to pay rent. We ended up taking that money to pay our rent, our actual facility rent. And yeah, I think that was like 2017, right? And we then realized, where we were living, we kind of wanted to move out. We want to move up. We want to create some more opportunity. Came into September, October, we started getting our customers back. Started growing a little bit, and then your sister at the time had acquired a townhouse up north in Newmarket. So our facility's in Scarborough. At that time, we were living in Scarborough, about 10 minutes away from our facility. So it was a simple drive. And we make the move up north because we finally had our own space, right?
Yeah, shared so space. my sister bought a house.
Yep.
And she was alone at the time, just pretty much working just like us 24/7 on her own thing. And yeah, we just both, like, me and her were talking about it, and she obviously could use a little bit of financial help.
Yep.
We could, use more space. And also, like, me and her are very close, and I'm sure it was kind of a comfort thing too to have me close.
100%.
For her at the time. So yeah, I'm sure it was harder for you than us too, because like me and her lived together previously.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I was very grateful for the experience looking back. The challenges out of that time was, business wasn't slowing down. If anything, we were growing. We were like developing. Remember, we got a brand new website at that point. Shout out Ray. Thank you very much, Ray Batista, my boy. First one to put me on Shopify. Without his help, a lot of this wouldn't have been possible. So thank you for that. Remember, we got onto Shopify.
We also took our first vacation while we were living there.
Yeah, but that's after, right? We're in 2017. We're going to 2018. We got on Shopify in late 2017. We built this website. Got on Shopify in 2018. We started getting orders. Ding, 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 ding. We're like, oh my God, we made it. Another level of success. We started getting a following. We started building the brand. We got the nice label. Remember, at this point, we had our old branding with the wink, my original OTR Meals logo. But, we started growing. Like, the actual business was gaining traction, and we were proud of it. But the reality was I was still
doing everything.
Still like 24/7. And if anything, I was doing even more at that time, because just before moving, remember, I'd gone down
the
food terminal. My best and worst days, I love the terminal. I just hated that day because it was the longest day ever. Remember, I would have to go to the terminal, leave Newmarket. I believe I'd wake up 4 a.m., leave by 4:30. From Newmarket to the terminal, which is pretty much in Etobicoke, it would take me about 45 minutes with no traffic. I'd get there for 5:30. I'd have to, I don't know, what were we really buying at the terminal?
Well,
I think
you were buying everything, then you were taking it back to the kitchen, offloading it, going to pick up the chicken, bringing the chicken back, and then you were cleaning and butchering the chicken yourself, essentially, for another like 4 hours.
Yeah, I remember that, butchering it,
and then sanitizing, cleaning everything after yourself, putting it all away,
and then got to the veggies. Oh no, and then I came home. You're right.
But that was like a 10 to 12 hour day.
Yeah, it was
from driving back and forth to the putting it all away, processing the chicken, picking everything up. That was the shift. It was like the purchasing and butchering shift.
And then of course, every day is a production day. Sundays are technically our like free day where we didn't have to produce anything, we didn't have to do anything, but I still had to show up, pack the bags.
Wednesdays and Sundays we were doing it together. Wednesdays
and Sundays. Pack the bags, see the drivers out. Because at that point, we didn't have a logistics manager that was handling all the deliveries for us. We didn't have a system, never mind. We were like on Google trying to figure it out.
Well, I vividly remember us like collecting the meals, like putting them in the bags.
Yeah.
And then drivers walking in as
we're
doing it, and you were like, okay, grab this one, grab this.
Yeah, anyways, we had a system, whatever makeshift system we were using then. And this was like 2017, 2018, and we're going into like, we're creating some traction at that point. Me and you, we were on a personal side, we were really enjoying life, like for those moments that we had. We were working still 24/7, but
honestly, it was always fun.
yeah,
we were never bored. We always had something to talk about, joke about. You know what I mean? Like, and we never got. Till this day, I'm like, it's astonishing to me. You're probably the only person on this entire planet that never got on my nerves. And when you did, you sensed it, and you kind of, before I even sensed it, like that time is coming, and you knew when to step away, and vice versa.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so we never had like these, like, you know, kind of like
moments of being tired of each other.
I'm in your face, kind of thing. We always kind of intuitively knew.
100%. And leading into 2018, the end of 2018, you know, you and I have now been together about a year and a half too. We've been living together. I think together.
We're mixing up the timeline a little bit, because we met December 2016.
Yeah.
And then 2017
is when you started.
That first year.
Sure.
End of 2017 is when we hooked up for the first time.
And then 2018 is
we
when
lived at Fetty's and I worked at the camp. Your brother got married.
Yeah, and then we moved into.
Then we moved to Lisa's. Had that 2019 Jamaica vacation.
2018 into 2019.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's where I'm at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the end of 2018, right? At this point, we've been more or less dating for a year and a half.
Dating.
Well, no. Excuse me. We were a thing. Officially for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And at this point, we've probably gone on like potentially, like I'm talking about like real dates, maybe 2, maybe, and then like we enjoyed, you know, outings together. I guess moments of time, you know, where like we were waiting for a delivery or something, or we were like, all right, let's take a break from work, let's go somewhere and eat something or something. But like 2 official dates, and we're like, okay, you know, I think we deserve, and I have no idea how I paid for this vacation, but we ended up booking an all-inclusive, our first ever, and we went to Jamaica. And what did we do?
Well, half the time we were stressing about the rebrand that we were doing simultaneously with our vacation,
100%.
and finishing everything off for that. And
so we were still working on vacation.
Yeah.
I was back and forth with China with the bags. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember.
But mostly we were eating and sleeping.
That's it. Pretty much.
That was for you, probably you can say the same. That was the one vacation in my life that I spent more time inside the room than outside of it.
100%. We were just so grateful to have a comfy bed, have room service. Do you remember room service?
The French toast with the hardo bread. Come on.
We felt
I'll go
like
back to the hotel just for that French toast.
Just for that, literally, just for the French toast. And you know the funny part is, that was till this day like one vacation, even though we did the least, and we were just pretty much cattle in, you know, like, oh, it's lunchtime, let's go eat. Oh, it's dinner time, let's go eat. And like, yeah, we spent like some
early morning beach, I remember, because that's when we had the energy still, and it wasn't that sunny. And then around noon, it's like lunch and then room. That's it. That was the whole.
I remember we just went to stay inside because we just.
But didn't we read like a book each at least? That was the only vacation we ever finished a book or something.
Yeah,
like 100%. we did. It was definitely
we just went to relax.
One. Yeah.
We felt rejuvenated coming back. I remember that. We just felt like, oh my God.
The main objective was like brain detox, I think. Like, like shut off our brains.
It was.
And like separate ourselves from our like day-to-day life.
We barely drank that trip. Like
we didn't drink at all. Yeah. You got drunk. You out of which is fucking funny as fuck.
I know. I got drunk.
You got drunk once.
Yeah, once. I remember. Because I said it, I was like,
I'm drinking tonight.
Yeah, we're being soft or something. Yeah. Like, what the hell? We paid for all this money. We haven't had one drink.
I couldn't even down. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But we were going to sleep at like 10 p.m. latest. Like
Max.
That was.
We'd wake up. Remember 2 a.m., 3 a.m. just for room service because we're like it's 24/7. We're using it. Remember? Oh yeah. We come back. We go into a rebrand. We have a rebrand party where we met the man behind the camera, Mark. Remember that? Yeah, that was crazy. We had a party.
You remember?
We did a rebrand, and at that point, there was many points of success that I felt, you know, as mentioned, like, you know, we dealt with the Blue Jays, we dealt with, you know, Toscana, all these things, but when we hit that rebrand, that I should probably rewind a little bit.
Quite a few of our members showed up, which was very, very flattering. I remember
Very
that.
flattering. It was amazing. It was a great turnout.
And
I think we had over like 100 people just show up in and out. Like it was pretty good. Like I was actually surprised. I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening.
It's so much fun putting a face to the name.
Yeah.
You know, like when you
Remember?
meet people you interact with.
Remember?
Like either online or like over the phone, you
Yeah.
know, like kind of thing. And then you meet them in person. Like
was
it's
really
like
nice.
it's such a fun experience.
But prior to that, one thing I wanted to talk about was, so as I mentioned numerous times, I was all in. But with a level of all in comes a level of resistance. How resistant was I to the rebrand? And our logo. You know, first and foremost, hold on. So when I
I think you should rewind it
Yeah.
to
a little context about the logo and whatnot. So, and how it all came about. At
well,
the time,
first, the company. You made a huge life change when you started this company.
yes,
And I think that's when you created the logo, the name,
yes,
and it was kind of intertwined with your identity. And
with
I think
my identity, of course.
that's why it was so hard to let go. It wasn't specifically the logo or the font or the emoji, but
Yeah.
it was. I think it was a part of who you are,
100%,
a part of the new person that you decided you're gonna become now.
100%, 100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. And I was definitely emotionally driven through it. I was attached to it emotionally, and this is now 4 years into the business. We have a facility. We have actual real members. We have a real website. We're running. Like we're actually making things happen. This is like we're in 2019 now. We're like, oh my God, we have a little bit more than 70 clients. We have to think about 80 at this point, 85 regular. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like we're like about to get to the 100
We were
mark.
steady growing. I remember that, but it wasn't like
No, it's a
overwhelming.
No.
growth. It was like just enough for us to manage and still
100%. But on the back end, we were growing a lot. We were
Oh, yeah.
developing
Yes.
ourselves.
Well, we
our
were
i-
always preparing for that overnight success that people
Yes.
call it, like
Yes.
that you prepare for 10 years.
Yes. And that part, of the rebrand, I had to let go of that identity. I had to let go of something that you had mentioned many times, and your mother was the one that I had many conversations with, and I couldn't understand her at that time because, again, all in mentality. I don't give a of who you are. It's I have this vision that I need to carry out, and no one's stopping me. Not your mother, not my mother, not you, not my dog at the time. I don't care who. I'm my head's too fixed on this.
Mm-hmm.
And when we came to a point of rebranding, that was like the biggest like detachment of myself and the company, and kind of creating two different entities essentially. And it's no longer Gallon, the meal delivery guy, or Gallon, the meal prep guy, or Gallon and On the Run Meals, or OTR Meals is Gallon and OTR Meal. It's like On the Run Meals, it's its own company, and it stands on its own at this point because we were able to stand on our own. You were being paid. I was not still being paid, but all the bills were being paid, suppliers were being paid, everything was being paid, right? We were successful.
Well, we had suppliers.
We had
We had
suppliers. We were
employees.
successful, right? And when this rebrand came about, it was like also rebrand for Gallon, and like myself, and like I was like, wow, I stepped back and I was like, cool. How naive we were at that point, because we were still nothing essentially. Like we were still like a small speck in the grand scheme of things, I'm saying. And what happened after that, we rebranded successfully. We got new packaging, biodegradable. New branding is beautiful, very subtle, very professional looking. People started taking us a lot more seriously. And at that point, with the draw of luck, or you always say my level of manifestation, something happened in the industry. The biggest player, unfortunately for them, went out of business, and they were my mark. I kept saying I'm going to be bigger than them. I'm gonna be better than them. I'm gonna be 10 times like there's nobody. They're number one. I'm coming for you. And I put it out there in the universe, and some way somehow that business dissolved. Um, Unfortunately, we acquired a part of their business, very integral part that has had a huge impact on me and my personal development with business, personal, and forever
Well, we
grateful.
acquired quite a few pieces from there.
We did, but one
Well, whom
particular
are still
piece,
here.
yeah, that who are still here, but one particular, part was Phil Shadow, my big bro. I love you, bro. He's Without him, I don't definitely OTR wouldn't have the level of success that it
Oh,
currently.
absolutely. He
We
brought a lot of knowledge
Crazy amount
in
of
a
knowledge, crazy and
niche that we
experience.
had experience, absolutely, that we had no idea of anything about marketing.
100%. It was the
Um,
missing piece, right? So we had logistics packed, locked down because we finally had a system for that. Our deliveries were being done properly. The food, of course, was continuously getting better. It's always been part of our, Kaizen, right? It's always getting better. Um, our customer service had somebody on customer service. Finally, it wasn't me emotionally responding, like, you know,
investing in every
investing so much
single
energy. Yeah.
situation, every single email.
So that was really nice. The next thing was, we had the facility, we had the brand, we were ready. We put ourselves in a position to be ready. And 2019 came about. I think it was like August. Had a conversation with Phil. This is what I love about him. He never once did anything shady. Just came on board. There's a lot more details behind and context that I could put, but to like just sum it up, came on board, didn't charge us anything for about a month, proved his worth, created a job for himself in a position. And one thing that I was looking forward to was that 100 mark. Like that's the moment that I promise you I'm gonna put a crown on both of us, and we're gonna be king and queen of the city. We got 100 clients.
How
And
naive.
how naive we were, and and what happened? Like we just I think blinked. We just blinked, and we were at like 200 clients, 250. Like I
Well,
don't even know what happened. I don't even know what happened. Like I couldn't breathe.
that's the
it just
thing. That's the thing. We, like I said, we were preparing for this moment for so long that I think when it came, it just happened.
just happened.
And I honestly believe that if we weren't doing all that work, those 4 years previously
Yeah.
to that, to when Phil joined,
We would have failed.
I think we would have flopped.
Yeah,
I think we would have dropped the ball
the
because it just grew so fast that without preparation. Well, what's your line
my line,
about
my favorite.
opportunity?
Exactly. It's the line I always live up to and live with and will continue to live with. It's like it's always better to be ready for an opportunity you do not have rather than having an opportunity that you're not ready for.
That's exactly that's exactly what happened.
And that's what it
We
was.
were preparing and preparing for an
Preparing.
opportunity that we didn't have, but then when the opportunity came, we crushed it.
We crushed it. We demolished it. We succeeded in every aspect. Like, don't get me wrong, there was plentiful of mistakes
Absolutely.
and problems and challenges that we had to overcome. Of course, COVID came around, right, in 2020. Yes, it supported our business because many businesses shut down, so they had to order food to their homes. The whole world shut down. But again, without being prepared for that moment, we wouldn't have succeeded the way we did. And continuously, always provided the highest quality that product and service that this industry had to offer, right? Like that's our promise, and it always has been our promise as a company, right?
Well, we never let go of the quality.
Never.
I know that a lot of times with growth, especially like how we discuss like rapid growth, fast growth, overnight success, whatever you want to call it, um, you start shifting focus, right? On
100%.
trying to fulfill the orders, trying to make sure everything gets out, trying to branding, website, stickers, bags, labels, I don't know, everything aside from the quality of the product, right? And that's where it kind of falls through the cracks, and then the growth, if it continues, then the quality just keeps slipping away.
100%.
And I know both you and I take a lot of pride in the food and the quality of the food
behind what we do. 100%.
We don't cut corners, and we never ever let go of that. Like, it's such a like strong grip that we have on that part, and potentially that is also part of the reason why we slacked in other
aspects
of the business.
Yep.
But at least, you know, we
go
to sleep at night knowing that our food is the best.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And on a personal note, though, as we've gone through all these phases, right? So the rebrand, and now we got into COVID and whatnot. Leading into, like, I believe it was like November. November. It was like November. What happened to me mentally?
I think that was the aftermath of all the burnouts that you.
So I should actually give a little bit more context. So we were living up at your sister's because we started growing, and time was now of value. We lived at your sister's, I believe,
value,
for higher value, because we were at a point where, like, you know, there was just too much work. And we were still involved with every part of the business, right? In like 2019, we had to get our own place, and at that point, we had enough money.
Well, the point was to it's not even necessarily our own place. It was the point is like we have to move close to work because we need to spend as least amount of time as possible on travel.
100%. So we move back pretty much to North York. We're like 10 minutes away from our business at that time. And what happens then? We started hiring people, hired 2 key roles, starting with Justin to help us on the customer service, the logistics and all that, orders and everything, organizing all that. And then MJ comes on board. She starts dealing with, we separate those 2 departments, you know, fulfillment and like customer service.
Yeah, pieces started definitely falling into place.
Yeah, pieces started falling into place.
Oh, we also had people that are knowledgeable in areas where we were slipping because we just didn't have the knowledge or experience.
Yeah,
like, you know, like Justin brought his knowledge and experience, 100%. MJ brought hers.
100%.
And me and you could focus then on what we were actually good at.
And like at that time,
part that we were supposed to lead.
100%. And at that time, we were pretty much more or less working out of our condo, right? So we had
the office was the condo.
Office. And because we got a little bit of our time back, and we got a little bit of money at that point because we've scaled at this point. You know, we chose to get essentially a nicer place downtown, right?
That was also an opportunity, though. Then Lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of, remember, it was kind of like it fell into our lap.
Yeah, it was, but we kind of wanted it, right? We wanted to give ourselves something, right? Like that was like the first.
What I was trying to say is that we wouldn't have done it if it all didn't fall into place how it did. Like
100%.
We weren't seeking out to upgrade or move at that point, remember?
No.
We were kind of just so focused on work, we weren't thinking about it. And then it fell into our lap, and that's what ignited that
100%
thought, even of consideration of should we move? Would we 100%. Move? Why didn't we think about moving?
And then that's when COVID hit. I had gone away, I believe, twice for 2 conferences at that time.
That was kind of just the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning, I remember. And then I had to like, what was it? I had to like quarantine or whatever crap bullshit that they had going on then for 14 days or whatever. And, you know, we're still working every day, all day. But not physically, because we had.
But we weren't working in the kitchen.
Well, we were
essentially restructuring. Remember our whole menus, the options,
everything,
expanding, everything, and
then at that point, we had a kitchen team. We had an office. Finally got an office, which was upstairs, not where we are currently.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yes, went there, and then you and I, for a short period of time, lived at that place in Daleki, which was for about like a year, I think. And then we moved out of there. We moved down closer to like, I mean, on the east end of downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like 2020, going into 2021. We chose to move from the west part of downtown to the east part of downtown so we can be a little bit closer as, you know, more cars started coming on road, right? Remember we mentioned how driving down the DVP is not the issue, it's that Gardner drive that really crushes, you know, it gives us an extended 20-minute drive. So we move a little bit east. We're still working 24/7. And at this point, just because of all the mayhem and everything, you know, and because those we were scaling, we were still growing at this
We were
point.
growing,
like
yes.
growing quick and fast. And
but that's when we decided that potentially there's a possibility in this universe that somebody will be able to replace me.
Replace you physically, remember?
Yes.
Yep. We were talking about getting you replaced physically. It was one of our dreams. And leading into November, at this point we had a staff, we had everything. We were fully equipped with people. Leading into November, you know, I had my little mental breakdown. Little.
I think it was just like it was honestly. I think it was just a buildup of all the burnouts throughout the years that you just brushed aside and kept going.
Kept going, yeah.
And it just all came crashing down on you.
It caught up to me.
It definitely did.
Yeah.
It reflected on everything, on our relationship, on your health, on your physical like well-being.
Yeah. I was done. I was checked out mentally, I remember.
And we really couldn't figure out what was wrong. You know, like we you know, like we were trying to figure out what's wrong. You were doing all these tests, you were reading up on so many different things, you were trying everything under the sun, like from spiritually, mentally, psychologically, you know, like to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, I was getting some really, really, really dark thoughts at this point. And, you know, being at the top at that point, having the amount of members and success left and right, like I was ready to return it all with what I was feeling. Like, I don't want to say the word, but like it was just as bad as suicidal thoughts. Like, remember I had to leave the condo one time. Remember I went downstairs and I don't know if you know, but I don't know if I told you, but I was in a fucking t-shirt. And it's minus like 20 at the time, November. It's freezing. And I just went for a run around the block because I needed this devil out of me. I couldn't explain it. Like I was done. And I think we sat one day during the day because I was mentally checked out. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't physically move. Remember? Like I was like on the couch, scared. I was taking all these like, because I'm scared of drugs. Yeah, I'm scared of drugs, guys. So like I don't take Tylenol. Never mind.
Like alternative medicine.
I was taking
literally every single thing.
Valerian. I went to Healthy Planet. I got all the calming teas. I got all the calming powders. I would remember my nighttime routine. I would just like shove all these things like an hour, 2 hours before bed.
Just to shut off your brain.
Shut off my brain, right? Try to go to sleep. And yeah, we ended up taking a 7-day all-inclusive vacation.
Mm-hmm.
It was
hoping that will help.
Yep.
And did it?
It did.
It did. And that's how we established that it could potentially be the environment.
It was again a mixture of things. It was like the time, right? Because everything was closed. I started seeing like a lot of my friends, you know, losing their businesses. You know, I started internalizing that. I started taking that.
And that was also at the peak of, how do I say politically correct while talking about this, where people, like society, started dividing
exactly
into these camps.
You're right.
With COVID and everything going on.
Yeah, like people are against each other. Myself, I'm gonna be straight up. I never once wore a mask. You you know my outlook on that since day one.
It was a very confrontational time.
It was. But you know who I am. I either stand for something or fall for anything. And you know, I believe I never once got sick from COVID, and I was being told all these things. So I was like, no, you know, there's a reality that I live with, and then there's the media, and you know, I know the media has always been skewed and it's been manipulated. So I never listened to it. And I think that also had an impact because I couldn't even go into grocery stores, or I would go, but
every single like day-to-day thing task was always
confrontation.
Approach with this anxiety, I guess, if you want to call it, or nervousness, because you know that you will have to defend yourself, be attacked by random strangers, ask medical questions that nobody has the right to even ask you, and you should be answering to people about 100%. That. I remember I'm not like a anxious person, you know what I mean? I remember like trying to strategize like the elevator, you know what I mean? If I'm leaving the house for work, I got to make sure I get all my errands done. Yeah. So I can only use the elevator that one time up, because I'm going to have to essentially fight a bunch of people that are asking me disrespectful questions, and I was just not, we were.
Yeah, it was again the mixture of that and mixture of like, you know, trying to keep up with all these new orders coming in. Of course, with success comes challenges, a lot of haters, you know. Again, because I cared about everything, I just burnt myself out. I was done. We went on vacation, came back fully replenished. I think it was like 48 hours after, I was like a new man. You remember? I woke up that one day and I was just like, oh my God. I was like, that feeling's gone, Sash. You know, and then came back again, you know, and crazy interrogation at the airport about this crap, that crap. I don't want to do this test. I don't want to do that test. Feeling like a freaking criminal, even though I'm just flying. And then I was like, you know, I can't do this anymore. Like, I didn't invest, you know, 6 years of my life at this point to get this company to this point of success for me not to be able to do what I want. And, you know, at that point, I made an executive decision on our personal life and every aspect of our life, and said, I'm out of here till this thing cools down. I'm going to go, you know, be a traveler or wherever I can, you know, live for the time being, where they're not as strict with the current rules, right? And we had gone down to Mexico, lived there for like 2 months. From there, our visas were going to expire. We were supposed to go to El Salvador for like a week, right? We're like, okay, we're going to go hang out in El Salvador. We're going to come back.
The visa
to reset
the
visa, to fly back into Mexico. And we just kind of fell in love with El Salvador. We ended up staying there for like 3 months. And then...
Yeah, that was a twist. That was definitely... I was not expecting to fall in love with that country the way we did.
Yeah, it was a very, very beautiful country. Very beautiful people. Everyone's amazing. It just got...
That really gave us that disconnect that we were looking for, I think. Because when we lived in Mexico, we were still surrounded by expats, Canadians, like
and
our
tourists,
friends.
Tourists. Yeah, people to come visit.
It is definitely like especially the area where we lived in Playa, like it's like a, you know, like it's
happening
a very
place.
Happening. Yeah, it's like high pace. And I think we were... it was fun at the beginning, but I think we got a little tired of it, because then we found ourselves kind of in the same loop. Why we left downtown Toronto.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be around people.
When we arrived in El Salvador, I think that's when we experienced that tranquility, like that serenity that we were after, where it's just silence. You know, like your brain like actually like
100%.
Experiences that silence. And was part of the reason, even though there was so many challenges, remember, like everything from just getting food, groceries, the gym, like everything was like such a trek, but we made it like our lifestyle.
100%.
And we like embraced it.
We did. We enjoyed every moment of it. It was very primal, very simple. We would go and just get food, come back, enjoy the simple things.
We would walk and hike everywhere. We didn't have a car once in El Salvador.
We were just enjoying, and you know,
up the mountain with the groceries.
Yeah, up the mountain with the groceries. Oh my God, it was like a 3 hour trek just to get groceries. And it reminded me obviously of the value of on the run meals back home, right? And gratefully, we were able to spend 6 months away from our business. We came back fully replenished, ready. And fast forward, to where we are currently, we have gone through a lot in our relationship from, obviously our first business relationship to then evolving into some sort of relationship, whatever we called it in the beginning. And then, of course, falling in love with one another. Um, and then me proposing to you when we did a Euro trip and in 2022. And then fast forward to where we are now, the fundamentals, I believe, have not changed. We still are here, as you can see. We're still trying to do things better. We're still trying to make things better. We believe that there's, we're doing something amazing for our city, people in general. We understand the value behind our offer. We truly believe in it. We use the product, and you know, from beginning to end, there's things that we've left out or perspectives. And there's several questions I kind of want to ask you. It's like, like we gave them a timeline, but I wanted to ask you, like, how do you separate the relationship, or how do you personally separate the relationship us from the business us
Hmm.
currently? At the beginning stages, of course, that was different, but
Yeah.
currently.
Well, it took a lot of self-work and learning, definitely. Um, I also, during that self-work and conversations we had where you mentioned things, that you how you see me and how I'm acting, things that I could, work on and correct. Um, I realized that I was, I guess because of the job, because obviously I'm a leader here at work, I was really like doubling down into this like masculine kind of leader. I do everything myself. I don't need no help. Like like
Yeah.
everything's gonna be fine. I can do it. Um, energy, and I was just carrying it around everywhere I went, and even at home, and that was creating a lot of friction between us because I was always kind of like this like tense
Yeah.
ball of
Yeah.
just like
Not being able to be vulnerable, not being able to, express your feminine side,
and not letting you
not letting yourself, and not letting me
help or lead or lead.
As I've always been, trying to lead, trying to help, trying to.
Yes, and as I started like kind of like internally like dissecting all of it and digesting it, I it's hard to like explain in words, you know what I mean? But in my head something changed where I was like, okay, well, I am this person at work because I have to be, that's my job. But I can be me, a woman, a feminine woman at home. And not everything is a war, and not everything is an attack, and not everything is, like some sort of ego power battle.
100%.
And you actually were the one continuously reminding me throughout everything that we're on the same side. We're one team. I'm on your side.
Every day.
I think it's also something to do with my childhood and how I would I the situation I've found myself when I was growing up, that everything seemed like a battle. Like every interaction was like a duel, face to face battle with a person.
Well, it's like more like you were trying to prove, right? And we know what the context for that one was, but reasoning behind that was, but.
And I also
But you've outgrown that though. Now
I had this profound, like deep down, like core belief that I only deserve love if I am excelling and performing to like the highest standard.
That's something we have to work at. Yeah.
So, like I was always like so tense and worried that like if I'm not like excelling at work and I don't, like take care of myself a certain way and I'm like a certain weight and like, like
Yep.
you won't love me or you'll walk away if I'm like not winning medals essentially, then I don't deserve your love.
Yeah, my perspective on that question is really simple. It's we're wired differently, right? Men and women. And
Absolutely.
something that I have a high level of understanding is, how humans think, like how and what drives them. And the thing that kept me from excelling and actually being who I am today, now, obviously, we have a 10 times different relationship that we had, for example, 4 years ago, with all these like back and forth ego battles. I've realized that, you know, I always have to, if you want to be a man, you always have to be the bigger man, right? Like you can't just pick and choose, right? And what I've realized is that for me, as much as I tell you that we're always on the same team, I also got to remind myself that not every point that I'm trying to make, I need to, number one, or number two, that you need to understand it, right? Like it's not like every single thing that you've ever told me that I have understood it, right? Um, so what I'm saying to you is there's been an evolution between the relationship of us and the business us, and I think where we are currently, I'm very grateful that we've learned to separate them all together, because the business us definitely bump heads till this day, right? Like we have two different outlooks, right? I'm the guy that has the macro vision, and then the micro details come in when you come in. And I understand that there's challenges between the two, right? Converting the macro into the micro, right? And making it fit, because it's challenging at times with what I expect, right? And you're expecting the world, but the reality is, right? So I've kind of understood over time, and obviously our what do we want to call it, battles, when to keep pushing that button and when to keep challenging you, or when to step back and say, hey, shit, man, we are on the same team. She's trying to tell me something. I should probably listen and either continue to push with a different timeline or just drop it altogether because I'm being silly, right? So that's where I think I've evolved as a man, and I've now, obviously, that's why you get a 10 times different version of me at home and a 10 times version of me here, right? And I always tell you, don't take it personally when we're at work. I'm just speaking to you like I speak to anybody else, like very stern, very, very right to the point, because you know how I am. I'm a jokey guy, but when it's business, business, like I put on a, like, excuse me, but don't fuck with me, right? Like I don't care who you are. Like it's business time. Like we're talking like responsible adults now. Like it's not about how you feel or what I did earlier, or like I don't care. I don't care what your kid did or this or that. I don't care who I'm talking to. It's like this conversation is all that matters at this moment, right? And you know how I take that. I need people's attention at that point, right? Because I'm trying to get a point across, right? And vice versa, if somebody's trying to speak to me, I give them my undivided attention. Leading to my next question, do you think us being a couple makes our business stronger? And if so, why? If not, whatever your perspective is.
Uh, I don't think us being a couple makes the business stronger. I think it's just the people that we are.
Yeah.
And we just so happen to be a couple now. Um I don't think that reflects on.
Fair enough. Yeah. So to elaborate on that, I personally, not that I would change anything because I never regret anything, even all my mistakes that I've made, actually, because I've learned from them and it's made me who I am today. But one thing I do know for a fact, especially with like what we went through to build this, I will never, ever put you in a position, in a company, if I were to start another company, in a position where it would take the same toll out of you, like it just, I can't, I just can't for myself.
Because you see me in a different way now. You're my protector, right?
100%.
Like where before that wasn't in the equation. Actually, on that note, I think the fact that we had a lot of personal challenges being a couple forced us to work on ourselves in ways that we wouldn't have done if we weren't a couple. You know what I mean? If we were just partners running this business, I think we wouldn't have evolved as humans to the point that we did, which obviously now reflects on our actions and decision making in the business, which makes it better and our dynamic. I just think that us being a couple and butting heads on like a personal level in a lot of ways forced us to really like double down and hurry up and do some internal work.
Yeah,
that
like
just
personal
made us better.
development.
Yeah, that just made us better humans. I think that us being together pushed us towards it sooner than it would have happened naturally if we were apart. Like if we were just business partners.
Fair enough, but to somebody that like is in a relationship, and let's just say like right now we're in a relationship, we just started dating.
Oh, like somebody that has been like is in a relationship and now starting a business.
Yeah.
No. I think it's probably better to not do it.
To not be in business together. Like one thing I always say, it's like business is life. You know this about me. Like, you always used to say, oh, separate the two. I'm like, what do you mean separate the two? What am I going to wake up one day and say, okay, this part of my day is work. Now I'm going to go back to sleep and I'm going to wake up again. And now it's my personal life. And I'm going to go back. Like,
that's what I did. That's actually what I did. Like, I know it sounds silly, but in my own head, I was like, switch feminine energy, you're home now. Switch. Like I was actually saying it to myself in my
100%
head.
With the way you carry yourself. That's one thing. But business is life, right? Like, it is my life, right? Like if I do a bad job with my business, it's going to reflect on my personal side, right? Like it's what I do. It's who I am. It's what I attach my name to. You know what I mean? So it is life. So I wouldn't recommend couples, newly couples, or even couples that have been together for a very long time. I wouldn't recommend them because like you said, it's going to create other challenges and issues, or may bring up issues and challenges that may not need to be brought up. Like, you know what I mean? Like when I'm saying, like, we're always on the same team, but it's not like we have to fight every battle together. There's times where you're fighting a battle. I'm like, you know what? I don't need that stress. Like, that's your battle to fight, because not that I'm not there to support you. I will always be here. If you came running to me, my hands are open. I'm ready to hug you. But there's a big thing about that. I don't come to your save. I'm not going to come save you because I can't save you from all your problems. Vice versa, right? So it's like, if I started a business and you were like, hey, I can help you with the business, that's great. You're my partner. So... I would love for you to help me. But this idea of like business dynamic, no, I don't believe it's good. It's not, especially when you're trying to achieve something so great and so big, and it's going to take a heavy amount of energy out of you. It's just not good, because it's all about energy and energy out. And when you burn that energy out and then you go and take it home, what type of energy spark do you have for your home life, right? It's just not good, And whether you're financially successful or not, I still think it's not good. You know what I mean? It's like having a separation. And now that doesn't mean that you guys can't technically be working on the same business. You can. It's just, I wouldn't say you guys should start the business together or be, it's like.
I wouldn't recommend starting a business together. I would absolutely, like right now, for example. Let's say if we are moving on with our lives, doing something else. I would love for you to maybe be like an advisor of
100%.
mine, come run for you for advice. Run to you for advice, but I wouldn't recommend, like, as an established couple, I wouldn't recommend like 100%. Starting a business together where both of you are like, and then it's like those, like, because the thing is, you start a business together, starting a business is like such a test on like grit. You know what I mean?
Course.
So it will potentially expose sides of one another that you didn't know that 100%. Are there. The ego, power struggles, decision making. And then like normally when people start businesses, they don't sit prior to and decide what's the task distribution and exact position.
You're figuring it out as you go.
And I feel like when you do it as a couple, this expectation is like, this is going to be 50-50. So if I'm working 8 hours in the kitchen, you have to go work 8 hours in the, like, and we even had that when we weren't really a couple.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I felt like I was doing a lot more work than you. You were burning out. I started building resentment. Then it flipped the other way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, why do you need that? Why do you need that extra test?
Yeah.
Like, life is gonna give you enough tests as a couple. Like, take those. Like, don't give yourself an extra challenge.
100%. What's the biggest thing we had to learn about each other when we became, when we officially became partners in both business and life?
That we are both very, very, very strong leaders.
Yep.
And there can only be one.
Good. That's the only thing. And I'll leave it at that, and I appreciate you saying that, because that definitely hits it right on the dot, like right on the mark. People think life's all about balance. Excuse my language, but fuck your balance, right? Like, last time I checked, there's one president, there's one prime minister, there's, you know what I mean? Yeah, there's a whole party behind them, great, but there's one person that's gonna address, right? And our relationship dynamic, I've always said I'm always gonna be the one, worst comes to worst, to be the one to stand up, right? And face the issue, right? Head on. And I think that has to be lived on a daily basis. It's not like, oh, one day this, one day that. It's like,
Oh, absolutely.
there's only one leader. Like, there's
Absolutely.
it's not like we're sharing the position, There can be a vice president, great, that fills in a moment in time, but still one president at the end of the day, right? And something that we've established and really helped us with our way we handle every challenge in life, right? We know
Absolutely.
our roles, right? Because
Yeah.
of that. And I think that really could help a lot of couples, create a lot more success in their life, in their relationship, by just playing your role.
Yeah,
right?
figure out what they are.
Yeah, figure out your
It doesn't
position.
have to be this like ours. Like,
Oh, no, time
some
out.
relationship dynamics are the opposite, right? Like,
100%.
the female is the.
I'll
but
tell you something.
Whatever
I
it
wish
is, accept it and lean in.
100%.
You know what I mean?
I always say, I wish you came from a rich family. So you had a business family and you were the businesswoman. Because personally, I want to be a stay-at-home dad. I want to work out, take care of my kids, feed them, because that's the most important thing. I want to raise my kids, because I wish I had the time one day when we have kids. I wish I have the time to be there for my kid, raise them personally, because I want to influence them, right? I don't want.
Well, it doesn't have
shitty
to be
school
one or
systems.
the other. You know for yourself that you're trying to figure out a way to have both, right?
100%. And what I'm saying is, but there's still a dynamic, right? There's still like a leader, and there's still a second in charge. And
You know what's funny is that now that I think back, I had this like, even as a girl, growing up, I had this idea of like the ideal man in
Yep.
my head, and like this like strong masculine energy, like this leader, right? That I would like kind of like admire and almost like look up to, I guess, in a way. That would be like my man. And I was wishing for that, right? And then when I got it, because I never had that before in my previous relationship, and then when I got it, I was like, what did I wish for?
Yeah.
It was so hard for me to accept, and it's almost like I didn't believe it, and I continuously tested you.
Yeah.
And I was like, is he like will he step up to the plate? Will he step up to the plate to like for you to continuously prove to me that you're worthy of being my leader, like the leader of our, I guess, union?
I think that was one of the challenges, is that you were always comparing me to the past, and the thing that I've always told you as well is never mind me to your past and your past relationship. Don't compare me and my past.
I wasn't comparing you to my past.
No,
I was
but
just
your past,
testing
yes.
I was continuously testing your thresholds.
Yeah.
With like essentially like the decision making as a leader, and like the moves that you're gonna make. I continuously, and I did judge you a lot on that as you were working on yourself, and I'm sorry about that. I should have known better, and giving you the time to grow and evolve, which you did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely tested like the king before he was crowned.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Many felt like it was years of testing for me. Till this day, I feel like I'm still proving myself. But But you know what? That's
In a
all.
way.
Well, you have to though, right? You always have to. You always say you always have to be the coolest guy, right? So still try to be the coolest guy for you. But cool does definitely change as you age and you become more mature. You start to value different things.
Well, that was kind of like our
I know.
inside
It's
joke
our inside
when we
joke.
called it cool, but
yeah,
like
living
what I
up to being the person that you
Yes.
say you're going to be, right?
what I
And-
was trying to communicate, I guess, in that is that like uh the second I stopped being like impressed
Yep.
and you stop teaching me things, that's when it kind of like I feel like that's when like it kind of
Yeah.
dies the respect dies off, and I honestly believe that that's the most important thing,
100%.
like for a woman to like admire and respect the
That's why I
man
always
that
talk
she's
about-
next to.
That's why I always talk about the mindset, right? Growth mindset. It's like, you always got to be evolving, right? Like if you're not, you're just going to digress naturally because time's always moving forward. And you're going to be stuck in a period of time where like you're just redundant. You're like old, you just became whatever. Like imagine saying like, yeah, I'm going to go and buy an iPhone 6. Like who the hell's buying an iPhone 6, right? Like everyone's buying the iPhone 16. Why? Because it's got new features that the iPhone 14 and 15 don't have, right? Or whatever. I don't know what features, right? Never mind the details. But, it's like you're always trying to evolve into the new person. And now, again, as years go by, that doesn't mean that you don't digress at times or you don't get a push back. Like, sometimes you fall back. That's fine. That's why we have partners or people to help us or friends and family and resources that we reach out to, But the idea is continuously pushing forward because if you're not pushing forward and you're not getting better, you're not evolving, right? Wherever it may be in your overall part of life, right? Personally, emotionally, I don't know, financially, whatever, spiritually, sexually, whatever the hell way you want to evolve, it's like there's ways of evolving, there's ways of working on yourself. And I think, people become too complacent and couples become too complacent and that's why they fail. It's like, never mind getting into business. It's like, have you guys done anything together? Like, have you challenged each other? Like when oh, I don't feel like going to work because I'm sick, and it's like the next day you're still sick and you're not going to work. It's like, hey, you're creating a bad habit. Like somebody needs to hold you accountable. Like, hey, like yeah, you were under the weather the one day, but like the second day you're feeling better. Like you can go to work, go make some money. Go do something with it instead of just sitting around. And I think the problem is starting a business with your spouse. It's like you don't understand, but you have to hold each other now to another level of accountability that I don't believe people have the gut, or like the stomach to stomach it, right? To confront, and I've confronted you
Or
a million
admit.
or admit. And that's where like we've evolved, right? Because we can confront one another and we can admit, And now, mind you, we have a perfect way of confronting each other because it's an inside joke.
It's crazy how we
Yeah.
because there's like systems like this in
Yeah.
psychology. Like it's a very well researched
What's he?
process. Yeah, like
Yeah.
what's the name for it? I think it's like it's almost like a reflection.
Yeah.
Like you pick like an item or a toy and then you like call each other out through it,
Yeah.
essentially.
And
But we didn't think about it or research it or known about
No,
this.
we
It
were
just
just-
happened.
we
How
were
did
at a
this
growth.
even
Okay,
happen?
here, let's just bring up the story. So give a little context. So pretty much there's this sheep stuffed
We'll bring him
sheep.
next time.
Yeah,
For the
Motsi.
next episode.
Motsi knows everything. Okay,
I should probably
guys.
sit in on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Supervisor.
What's his full name? Motsi. Motsi is his name, but
Mozart Amadeus.
Amadeus the Great. You have to understand something, guys, about Motsi. He is the one that knows it all. Okay, he's
Just infinite consciousness and knowledge.
infinite. Like he does it. He's always right, and he knows it all. Like that's just the bottom line. And he's helped us. One day it was like end of Easter, and they were just selling everything at like 50-60%
At
off. When we saw
Superstore.
at the Superstore, yeah.
It was clearance sale after
clearance
Easter,
sale,
yeah.
and you just ran up to him and you're like, "I want this." And I'm like, "Why? I put it back. It's fucking
That's
20."
when we were struggling.
Struggling.
Yeah,
Struggling is not the word.
struggling.
We were dying. And
Verge
you're-
of poverty.
and you're trying to put $20 into our card. I was like, $20 what? Like we're getting groceries for OTR. We can't even afford for
It was like
ourselves.
$16.99 or something.
Something like that. Anyways, $20. I've been looking at it. $20 is a lot. And I remember you putting him in, and I was like, you know what? She hugged him, and she was just so happy to get him. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it if we go out of business for this. We're getting him.
The last $20 for the clearance sheep at Superstore.
He's moved with us 1, 2, 3, 4 times now. And we always, and actually came to the office at times because we were fighting a lot at the office, so we needed him. And now, to pretty much sum it all together, it's, we use him as a way of expressing ourselves to get a message across to one another. So like,
calling each other out. Call it what it is.
Yeah, just call it what it is. It's calling each other out. So like, for example, we have our roles, at home. Naturally, we just kind of like do our own thing. She's the laundry, I'm the dishes, whatever, right? And there's times where like, I don't have my black socks, and like what said, he actually needs black socks today because he's wearing his black shoes, and
Well, Motzi is the short form of Mozart.
Yeah.
That's how we call him. Motzi.
Yeah, Motzi. And Motzi's taught us both a lot of lessons, definitely, and helped us internalize our own feelings and helped us externalize, excuse me, yes. And understand ourselves better and understand our shortcomings. And you know what? The moral of the story is we figured it out because we always wanted to figure it out. We never left things on the table, and we didn't brush things under the table. We always held each other accountable. We always called each other out. Now we call each other out. Obviously, I mean, Motsi's been around for 5 years, 6 years, calling each other through him. But, before it was because we weren't, I guess happy
in
with
sync.
in sync in terms of like happy with with ourselves, that we would, I would express my shortcomings on you and you would express your shortcomings on me, and we'd blame each other as if we're the problem, when in reality there came a point where we just said, okay, enough of this crap. Let's take accountability of our own actions. Let's make plans of changing our own actions, and of course Motsi taught us all this, but and we lived up to that, right? So we're like, now it's like, it's more of like jabs, like little jabs, it's like when I'm being like lazy or something around the house, and you'll say, you'll call me out on it, but
it's like a lighter,
like a lighter, right? Because we
little reminder kind of thing.
And the main thing is
scolding or like
exactly
like some like super serious, like,
yeah, it's not like,
like, oh my god, you didn't put your socks in the bin for the third day in a row or something like that.
It's like little light things, right? So,
and more times than not, why this helps, I think, is because the little things that are making you feel so irritated are not really what the core is. So when you express it, because you still want to say it, right? It's like, I want to say it. I want to give him that jab. Like when you say it through Motsi, how we say it, it's kind of like you got it out. You don't take offense to it because of the how it was presented to you, essentially. And it's never we figured out a way to not let it come to a point where you're so frustrated that you're actually angry, and now you have to have this like conversation out of anger, where it's kind of just thrown out there, like with no really like any emotion or expectation.
100%.
And then you clock it,
and then deal with it your way,
the other way around, and 100%. then you like fix whatever the issue is, or I would go
whatever it is that we call each other out for.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, to sum it really down, it really comes down to like just an understanding and a want to get better as a human, right? Like that's what it really sums down to. If you want a successful relationship, you want a successful business, you want a successful life of any aspect of life, like you need to put energy in it with a high level of integrity behind it, and you got to do that consistently, and that's what I guess breeds success. And I think that's why, when people look at me and say, oh, why, what makes OTR different? I'm like, man, it's like OTR is built, like it's in the veins, it's in the blood. Like there's no scam artists coming through here trying to collect a check. It's people that care, and it's just, you can't manipulate that anymore. It's the company's, like, it's who it is. It's what the company
created this like almost like an organism, like a vibe here, and everybody that has been working
an environment
here, everybody that's been working here with us for like years now, they're kind of on the same wavelength, and they like now we used to be the guardian angels, you know, like determining whether, you know, like somebody fits in or not just because of the person they are and their values and stuff. Where now it's like took on it like a life of its own,
an evolution,
and now it's like it's evident when somebody doesn't carry the same 100%. Mindset and mentality as the team.
Yeah, you take like
they
any
pointed out to us. They're like, hey, we don't think like he's a great guy, but we don't think it's a good fit just because, you know, like we're not
pretty much you can take any cook off any line, you bring him to our kitchen. I'm sure he has some bad habits over there, just naturally, right? We're driven by habits as humans. You've accumulated a couple of bad habits. You bring them over here, like you're getting called out. You're sticking out like a sore thumb. Why? Because the environment will dictate and showcase the truth of what should be done and how it should be properly done. You know, it's like because there's processes, right? So
yeah, but all of that also can be taught. I think like it's more of like you know how we always said like we don't hire skill, we hire character. Because skill could be taught and 100%. Learned, and character, like that's just what it is.
But that's what I'm trying to say. It's like the way that once you see those bad habits get exposed, and then you address them, and once you address these bad habits, how they internalize it and
what they get back at you with.
Yes,
is
and what
it correctional?
Will determine their existence within OTR or not, right? And that's something that, you know, again, you and I have gone through on a personal side. It's like, you know, we challenge each other. It's like, hey, I'm now this person, like myself. You know, I'm like, how many times have I pushed like healthy diet on you? I'm like, hey, you know, yeah, we were eating crappy for 6 months time, but like now I'm eating healthy. I expect you to eat healthy as well. Why? Because like
I try.
We have to be on the same page, right? So anyways, guys, there's a lot more that we could have definitely added into this episode. This is our first one. Thank you for helping me get this done.